Hi, I'm Kate. Let's talk theater. Today we are going to be talking about money spent on theater in 2024. This was something I was a little bit scared to do because I did not know if I wanted to face how much money I spent on theater. I ended up seeing 49 shows last year in 2024, and what I won't be doing is adding up how much I spent on parking and public transportation because I don't want to know how much of my money NJ Transit got, to be quite honest with you. It's better this way. But I thought this would be fun to talk about, to kind of just like be transparent, how I was getting the tickets that I'm getting, all of that, and kind of see what this looks like and talk a little bit about money, even though it's kind of a taboo thing, but it's super important, right? Like how we use our money is how we use our power. Like we can find freedom in our money. We should be empowered by how we use our money. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that, like, yes, there are cheap ways to get Broadway tickets, but it's a chunk of change, and everybody's idea of what affordable is different, so why not talk some numbers? So, I saw 49 shows on Broadway, off Broadway, on tour, and some regional productions. The majority of the shows that I saw were on Broadway. 35 of those were on Broadway, 2 were off Broadway, 5 were on tour, and 7 were regional. Regional was like Philly, all up through New Jersey, Montreal in Canada, Agunquit, Maine. I think that's how you say it. I'm pretty sure. Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I think that's it. So I was kind of like up the east coast a little bit. That was some of the first time I had gone and done like a significant drive, an overnight trip to see theater, so that was pretty exciting. And obviously we're talking about otherwise Broadway, off Broadway, and the tours were in Philly, or I think I saw one in New Brunswick, New Jersey. So let's talk some numbers. I was kind of shook. It feels like a big number, but if I put it into perspective, it's not like huge. So overall, over 49 shows, I spent $3,254. Now, the caveat to this is that there are a couple shows in here, I think, that I didn't pay for the ticket. They were a gift. Then there are a couple shows where I paid for the other person's ticket, right? So we are really just thinking about my experience, my ticket, what did it cost? Most of these numbers are probably right. If they're a little bit off, as I was like digging through emails, they're probably only off by a few dollars. So just over 3,000 is the number. Okay, now the average of that is $66, and the median is 47.5. 47.5 is the price of actually some lotteries that I went to, and so that makes sense. That feels right. There are a couple higher up numbers that I feel like kind of skew things, right? So in total on Broadway, for instance, where I did a lot of lotteries, it was $2,000. So over $2,000, $2,300 on Broadway shows. But again, that's 35 shows, so that average is still 66. So why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because I think it's important to be transparent. Like Broadway, especially, and Broadway is the majority of the shows that I saw, it is a luxury. Like, it is a luxury experience. It's expensive. And then I'm also not living in Manhattan, right? I'm not living in New York. So I feel like everybody coming to Broadway to see a show, like our dollar will just never match the New York dollar, right? Everybody has to live in New York who's doing a Broadway show, right? So if we come from outside of New York, unless you're coming from like LA or San Diego, your dollar is just not going as far. And I can definitely see that. And then some of the prices that I spent in Philly. Philly tends to be half of what it costs on Broadway, if not even less. Right? So the most expensive ticket, for instance, that I spent on Broadway to see Sweeney Todd, second row, because I went kind of wild, like the ghost of Christmas Present took over my body. The most expensive ticket was $269. Again, second row Sweeney Todd. I got one for myself. I got one for my mother. Okay, again, the Christmas spirit had a say in what was going on. I felt like with Sweeney Todd, they were already really expensive. So my brain kind of did that thing where you're like, well, like row V, like I think it was row V, was 190, maybe some change. 190. That's a beefy number. So my brain was like, well, if you go like this much closer, like, an extra $80, but to be in B instead of V, like that's practically a good deal. Like my brain was doing things. It would have been different. Like if this was just for me, I don't think I would have been able to justify that. Like that is the most I've ever spent on a ticket. That is probably the most I will ever spend on a ticket for a very long time. It's like significantly more. I think I've spent $200 like twice ever in all these years. So that's a lot. Now, to put that into perspective, looking at the most expensive ticket outside of Broadway, I bought a ticket for the Hamilton tour when it came to Philadelphia for $150 for third row. So I mean, $120 difference. Now they're different shows and casts, and I know it's not that simple, but that's a significant difference, right? So thinking about Broadway, like Broadway's a luxury. We have to be real about that too. I think we just have to be real about that. It's not, I see a lot of discourse around the price of Broadway, and I just think it's not helpful to just think, oh, well, Broadway needs to be cheaper. It's just not that simple, and I think that conversation isn't helpful, and I think it would be more helpful to really elevate these other kinds of theaters, or these other kinds of theater experiences, like tours. A lot of people talk down on tours, right? And talk down on regional theater. I made a video talking about my year in tours and regional. If you want to take a look at that, I talk a little bit more about how I think tours get kind of a bad reputation and people don't think they're as quality. Regional as well. They don't think it's like Broadway, to a certain extent, is a brand name, essentially. And the price comes with that. And furthermore, it's in Manhattan. The price is going to show that as well. And I think that's something to keep in mind. But like I said, a lot of these were lottery, right? A lot of these tickets were $40, right? That's how I was able to see so many, 35. Out of the 35 shows that I saw on Broadway, 22 of them, 22 of them were lottery, right? So like that's how I got to see as many as I did. So I said the highest was Sweeney Todd, and the highest by far, and probably the highest number I will spend again anytime soon. The lowest was maybe Happy Ending. They had a special preview price where the lottery for their preview was $29. They just beat out Sweeney Todd, which its lottery was $30, which also helped me justify such an expensive ticket. I was like, well, I went to their lottery twice for cheap, so that's practically a bargain. The things we do to want to go see theater. So yeah, $29 for a Broadway show. They were actually pretty good seats. The Belasco is a mess at times, but I actually got good seats, no issues, except the knee room was insane, which for me being 5'3" and crying about my knees is just shows how horrible those seats can be. And so when we're thinking about like what was the breakdown, right? So there's 49 shows, 23 of them were lottery, 2 of them were rush, specifically digital rush because I do live in Pennsylvania. So doing in-person rush is just, to me, like, it's just not doable. I don't want to be in the city for hours and hours and hours. I'm already there long enough. It's already a long day. I got 9 on sale and 15 were just like the full price that they were on the official ticketing website. I always buy through whatever the official website takes me to when I go to buy tickets. Sales were all over the place. Some were under 30, under 35, which is now under 40 for New York City Center. Just like random sales. The Arden Theater were sending me coupons for POTUS for just like days that tend to sell less, like a Wednesday evening. They're like, hey, if you buy tickets for a Wednesday evening, they're only $35. I think they were originally like $60 to $70 off the top of my head. Right, so that is definitely something to be aware of when you're thinking about how do I go see more theater. Ultimately, I see a ton of lotteries. I see a ton of lotteries. I sign up for like all the regional theaters and my touring destination. I sign up for all their emails because they will send things. Even my touring destination, Ensemble Arts Philly, formerly known as the Kimmel Cultural Campus, formerly known as the Kimmel Center, they will have like insane sales. You know, all the tickets, $40 tickets they had at the beginning of the year, $20 and 25-cent tickets, right? So they have really great sales. Now, obviously, right, like you have to kind of be on the up and up, and they can be some pretty big theaters. It kind of depends, but I've definitely like engaged in those sales and had a really great time. So that's something to think about too. Especially with the touring destinations, at least for me, I have a big touring house, so the price points are vast, right? They can have more affordable tickets, but I've seen people who are in touring destinations that maybe the theaters are a little bit smaller, and they're honestly paying more than I am in Philly, right? So there's a lot of variables. There are a lot of variables. There's really no one size fits all, and that can make engaging in seeing theater kind of difficult. Okay, back to the numbers. Like I said, the average was $66 per show. The median was 47, and I wanted to throw the median in there because I do have only a handful of those like the 270 and the 150. A lot of the other ones are kind of I tend to try to not spend more than like 130 tends to be my cap if I am buying a ticket full price. That tends to be like where I am comfortable, and partially I'm able to be comfortable with that number because I know a lot of the time I'm doing some lotteries and it's making it overall like the full picture more affordable. So I kind of wanted to, I think, enter this conversation talking about like money, right? Money values. And I think a lot of the time, I know for me, like when I talk about how much theater I see with people who don't see theater, there's like this judgment to it. There's this little air of judgment, which I think is so interesting because like for me, theater is what I love. Theater is an experience. That is what I like to spend money on. You will not catch me spending a lot of money on other things. Obviously, I buy all the merch. This is basically the only clothing I buy at this point. I super rarely buy clothes. That is partially money. That's partially space. There's no more space left in here. I don't like DoorDash. I very rarely go out to eat. I don't do my hair and my nails and all of those things, right? And it's honestly frustrating when somebody is like, oh, I could never spend that much money on theater. But then they turn around and they're getting their nails refilled every month. They're getting their roots touched up. Like this hair, I just dyed this. I think you can literally still see with a box dye that I got, I think for free through like CVS Carebass coupons. Like I will scrimp and save in every other part of my life to make this work because this is what's important to me. And that is really how we should be thinking about our money. And I am not a money expert. I am not on here to teach anybody about money. I've read the book Financial Feminist, and that is sort of that platform, the podcast, and Tori Dunlap's profile and all of that. Like that's what introduced me to really thinking about my finances and thinking about value-based spending. And it's something I now talk to other people about generally, right? But it is so important. We need to be spending money in a way that works for us. You know, one person who gets coffee every single day, if you want to get coffee every single day, that's awesome. I don't like coffee enough for that. And $5 a day on a cup of coffee, if that's even what coffee costs anymore, it's probably more. I have no idea. I use a K-cup. I don't know. But $5 a day on a cup of coffee is $150 a month, right? Yeah. Or even if you only do it on work days, that's $100 a month, right? And so if you love having your coffee, if that's like a part of your routine and your ritual, and you really love a good cup of coffee, a fancy cup of coffee, like pop off. I see that money though as $150. Like that was my ticket to Hamilton. That was me spoiling myself because the last time I went to Hamilton, I won the lottery and I was second row, and that just like was life-changing. So when I then went again, I was like, well, I have to spoil myself. Really lucky seat spoiled me, and now I have to spoil myself. Like $150 a month, you could get 30 coffees. You could get a Hamilton ticket, right? Again, if you like your coffee, pop off, live your life. I don't like coffee enough for that. What's more important for me is a theater experience, and so I'm going to put that money there. I think that's what's important. I think people have a tendency to assume that people are like them. But I think when I say I'm spending money on theater, people think I'm also going out to eat, going out to drink. I'm getting my nails done. I've never even, I haven't gotten my hair done in a while. I would love to, but that's just not in the cards right now. I went back to brown and we're done. We're done for a while. My hair needs a rest from the box dye, let alone the bleach. Like, bleach cannot come here right now. I've never gotten my eyebrows done. And that's not like, oh, like, I would never get my nails done. I mean, getting my nails done does scare me now because I once, ripped out half my nail on an acrylic. And so I actually probably will never go get my nails done. At least not like that, because now I have a fear. But it's just ultimately, what you spend your money on is your business. And I think what's most important is, are you spending money on what's actually important? Because money is a finite resource, and we need to be realistic about that. And if you want to go out to eat, DoorDash, buy clothes, whatever, do that. Because do it if that's what's actually fueling you. And if you're buying a bunch of clothes and you're looking back a couple months later and saying, why did I buy all of this? That's not really fueling you. And maybe that money could go towards something that is going to fuel you, whether it's theater or something else. So I just think, I don't know, I think it's important to give you a little transparency, right, about what did my spending look like? And like I said, in the year of 2024, according to my calculations, I spent $3,254 on theater and an average of $66 a ticket. That's doable for me. That's, that's 4 shows a month on average. It didn't actually play out like that, but that's $273 a month. To some people, that's not affordable. To other people, maybe that's a drop in the bucket. I don't know. For me, to add that context of I have a salary, I try to watch my spending, and I have had a lot of help. That is, again, affordability is, it's hard to come up with what is affordable for something like theater. I don't know. What is affordable to one person is not affordable to somebody else. So I think ultimately the conversation should be, how do we make people knowledgeable about some ways to engage in theater that's going to work for them? Look into your regional, look into your tours, and look into your lotteries. Tours also tend to do lotteries sometimes, and if you're near New York or coming to New York, look in a lottery, look in a rush, find ways that are going to work for you. For me, this is working for me. So it's really just thinking about, are you making choices with your money that are working for you? Also caveating that, not everybody has the choice, right? It's not always an easy choice. Choice is part of that privilege. But also I'm talking about, seeing theater for fun. So a certain amount of privilege is obviously expected. Obviously I have disposable income. This was an interesting thing for me because I think it's going to really put into perspective how I budget for theater moving forward, and some ways in which I can make smarter choices. Maybe I don't ever need to spend $270 on a ticket ever again. That's crazy. Don't let the Christmas spirit take me over this year. But also really engaging in finding more 30 under 30s. I'm trying to really do more research on that because that is something that is kind of new to me as a concept. So I'm interested to see how maybe some of these numbers put into perspective my own spending on theater. And again, I think that reminder of if you have that disposable income, really think about how you're spending it. And make sure you're spending it in a way that ultimately serves you at the end of the day, because our money is our power. Money buys us pieces of happiness, and you should use it as such. I guess that's the lesson. And not that I have to teach a lesson, but I feel like there has to be some point that I made this video. Yeah. Is that enough information? Probably. So yes, all in all, 49 Broadway shows. About half of them were lottery and rush, and good handful of sales, and just making it work. And we'll see what happens this year. I'm intrigued. So there you have it. There's the money I spent in 2024. Do you want more information? Was this terribly constructed? I feel like it was. It's a little bit rambly. So there you go. There you have it. That is the money that was spent on my Broadway, off-Broadway tour and regional experiences. If you want to hear more, comment below. Follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. Like and subscribe and do all of those things. I'm really trying to build an audience over here because TikTok is in limbo forever, probably. I'm not going to trust that TikTok's going to be around forever, so follow me here on YouTube. And I will see you next time to talk more theater. Bye!